What's going on YouTube? OCD for EDC here. What I got for your face balls today, we're talking TRM Shadow. The TRM Shadow is a really cool knife. I'm excited to get my hands on this thing, and we are going to talk all about this. We're going to do a disassembly on it and talk about the good, the bad, and everything in between. So first up, I'm sure most of you are familiar with TRM. This is Three Rivers Manufacturing. They're the ones that make the infamous Atom and Neutron, the Neutron 2, the Nerd. So they have several different models available. This is their newest offering, the Shadow, and it's a really cool knife, and we're going to get into it. First up, though, here is the packaging that comes with the TRM Atom. A pretty cool little piece. These are really similar to the types of containers that end mills and things come in. So if you've ever been around a machine shop, you've seen very similar type packaging. However, this one, these are renewable. This plastic material is made from sugarcane, which is pretty cool. I actually talked to Les about this a little bit while I was at Blade Show, and he saw these at some machine show that he went to, and thought they were pretty cool, so they're using this to package up the Shadow. While I was out at Blade Show, TRM was the first booth that I went to. I definitely wanted to get my hands on a Shadow while I was there, and I was able to do so. Marianne and Les were just awesome people to deal with, and had a really nice time talking to them. Marianne hooked me up with 2 packages of the little O-rings to put around the thumb stud. We'll talk about that a little bit later. And then she also gave me a titanium guitar pick for my daughter. I personally do not play the guitar, but my daughter does. And my daughter really enjoys this pick because of its rigidity, as well as just the fact that it's titanium and pretty cool. It's got their Three Rivers logo etched into the surface of the tie. Pretty cool. You know, we'll probably end up anodizing this or something. But yeah, I thought that was really cool. And Marianne was just awesome to deal with, and gave me one of those for my daughter. Very cool. She's enjoyed it. So thank you very much to Marianne for that. So for those that are not familiar with TRM, they're a small kind of mom and pop shop. Started out machining titanium parts for other manufacturers, I think in '77, if I remember correctly. So a little bit older than I am, the company. And I don't know exactly what year they started making their own knives. But I think originally Les and Marianne's last name is Halpern, and I'm pretty sure it was just called Halpern Machine Company or something to that effect. But they changed the name up to Three Rivers Manufacturing when they started making their own complete knives. I'm not sure what all they made originally. You know, I'm guessing titanium hardware and some bits and pieces for manufacturers all over the world. So they kind of specialized in making titanium parts and pieces. But they do have some pretty impressive machining capabilities. And, you know, over the last couple of years, the Atom and Neutron, it all kind of started with the Neutron, and then the Atom carried on. You know, those knives are super hyped. You know, they've been basically sold out. Every single drop that they do sells out immediately, and it's been that way for the last handful of years. A lot of that needs to be chalked up to old Nick Shabazz and the Shabazz effect. You know, I think he actually named the Neutron and then the Atom Knife of the Year 2 years in a row. So they make really good stuff. Personally, I was not super impressed with the Atom and the Neutron. They were fine knives. Nothing real serious negative about them. To me, they just weren't really comfortable in hand. The Atom and Neutron, I've handled them both. I owned a couple Atoms. They're very, very thin, And the corners and edges on whatever scales that you have on them, they're really cool knives in the aspect that you can change the scales very easily. The pivot does not sandwich the scales together, so that's a little different than most knives out there. So you can just take a couple of body screws out, pull the scale off, put a new one on, and they make lots of different scales in a wide variety of materials, which that's pretty cool, so it's real easy to customize your knife. But to me, it just wasn't really comfortable in hand. It did not have the really nice rounded corners like the Shadow here. Also, they were liner locks. They were titanium liner locks, and the tie was very, very thin. They just weren't a very structural knife. You could, bend it very easily, and that's fine. They weren't meant to be a hard use knife. But one of my biggest complaints about them, both the Atom and the Neutron were running, as well as the Shadow here, are running about 90 thousandths blade stock. And on the two Atoms that I had, they both were right around between 30 and 35 thousandths behind the edge. So the primary grind, although they started with very, very nice thin blade stock, which I love thin blade stock, 30 thousandths behind the edge is not good edge geometry at all. I would have wanted to see the primary grinds go down to like 10 thousandths behind the edge, and then now we're talking about something. So a lot of people went on and on about those knives being quote unquote slicey. Well, having 90 thousandths blade stock, that's great, but if you don't grind it aggressively to get down to something that's, say, sub 15 thousandths behind the edge, then you kind of defeat the whole purpose of having real thin blade stock. So, the Shadow here is a little bit better, and we're going to talk about that in just a moment. Yeah, so, that's kind of where TRM came from with the Atom and the Neutron. And now they brought out a model maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago, called the Nerd, which is essentially a smaller version of this. It's a very similar design, but it's very small. It's not an Axis style lock, bar lock. It's I'm pretty sure that one was a liner lock as well. And it just really wasn't for me. It's way too small. I've got really large hands. So this is about as small as I go for a knife. So let's talk about the size on this thing real quick. So what you're looking at is an overall length, basically 7 3/4. You got a handle length of just under 4.6 inches, like 4.59. You got a blade length of 3.14 inches. Got a handle thickness of just under a half of an inch at 0.489. And you can see here that your access bar sticks out considerably. This portion here actually measures about 640 thousandths across there, so over a half of an inch wide. Now, I do like the fact that the access bar sticks out a little bit proud. It makes it, real easy to get a purchase on that. However, I don't know that it needed to stick out quite that far. But it's okay. It's comfortable. Not going to complain too much about it. Definitely makes it very, very easy to get your thumb and index finger on that lock bar. But blade stock on this guy, my particular example here measures 89 thousandths, so just shy of 90 thousandths. Behind the edge thickness, pretty consistent on this one, but 21 thousandths behind the edge. So better than what the Atoms were that I had, but still not as aggressive as I would like to have seen it. To me, like I said, this should be down to 10 thousandths or so, and that would be really aggressive. Now, they might do this because they don't want a bunch of warranty claims for blades chipping and that sort of a thing. But, to me, these are not hard use knives. Nobody should be out batoning this blade through anything. These are performance knives. With 90 thousandths blade stock, this is a cutter. and should be. And you know, that primary grind just isn't aggressive enough in my opinion. It needs to be a little bit more, so at least get it down to 15 thousandths, or you know, between 12 to 15 thousandths behind the edge. That would also make it a little nicer and easier to maintain the edge. You know, the thinner it is behind the edge here, the smaller your secondary bevel is, the faster it sharpens, and the easier it is to maintain that edge. So, you know, take a look at any good kitchen knife. They come down to a very, very thin edge, and there's a reason for that, because it's all about performance. So, weight on this thing, let's get a weight here. Move that to where you can see it. All right, 3.763 ounces, so 3 3/4 ounces for just over 3 inches of blade, 3.14 inches of blade. I really like the overall look of the Shadow. You know, it's kind of funny because the Nerd is a really goofy looking little knife, but when you stretch it out proportionally, it turns into a good looking knife. I like the fact that the cutting edge is below the grip, so you can actually cut down onto like a cutting board. You know, this knife's going to work well for food prep and that sort of thing. It is rocking 20 CV blade steel, so it's going to be, you know, very corrosion resistant, which is good. And then basically everything else on here is titanium and G10. So, you know, not a whole lot to corrode or have any issues with. As far as I know, this is riding on phosphor bronze washers, but we're about to find out. I have not disassembled this as of yet, but we're about ready to. Real quick, let's do a couple size comparisons. I'll set it this way so it's not up on the clip. Here it is with a Spyderco Mannix. So kind of line those pivots up there so you can see it's a little bit smaller than the Mannix. Here it is with a PM2. There you go. Here it is up against the Hogue Deca. So very, very similar in overall length to the Deca. And here it is up against the Spyderco Shaman. So the Shaman being, you know, a much more harder use knife, but design wise, there's quite a bit pretty similar, a lot of similarities between the Shadow and the Shaman, but size wise, very comparable to the Deca. So that's what size knife we're talking about. And, you know, when you look at any of the Benchmade or Hogue axis lock style, you know, Benchmade axis lock or the Hogue Able lock, you can see that the Able bar sticks just a little bit proud of each scale, but you compare that to the Shadow, there's quite a bit sticking out there. Like I said, I don't know that it needed to stick out quite that far, but it does make it easy to get a good purchase on that lock bar. As far as the way this is dressed, so you do have a fancy side on the pivot here. It's got that kind of starburst mill pattern, and then you do have some flutes, some milled lines in the black G10 here. There is also a titanium block off plate where the clip goes. The pocket clip on this knife is fantastic. They did a wonderful job on this. It's full titanium, fold over deep carry style pocket clip. You can see that the clip sits flush with the scales. It's recessed down into the scale, as well as the clip screws are recessed, and it carries beautifully. Really, really nice knife to go in and out of the pocket. So no complaints there. The thumb studs. Oh, the thumb studs. So this is the same style thumb stud that they put on all their knives. Same design that's on the Atom and the Neutron. It's really just a bit uncomfortable. Hence the reason why they sell these little O-rings to put on them. You can see here that that's what you're working with, it just makes for a kind of an uncomfortable edge to it certainly works well. So functionally it's fine, but it does get a little bit uncomfortable and it is a little bit sharp to deal with. So putting a little O-ring on there makes it much nicer, gives you a little wider surface that you're pushing against. And yeah, that's a worthy upgrade. And honestly, I feel like they should just come on the knife, really, because it's just something that, yeah, the knife should just come with these O-rings, I mean, they have red, white, blue, and black. I just threw the black ones on there when I first got it. But really, I feel like that's almost mandatory, really, because the thumb studs just are not the most comfortable that I've dealt with, that's for sure. But, they're nicely made, so I'm not going to complain about it too much. I'm just looking now at the pivot screw here, and that tooling looks a little wonky inside there. I'm not sure what's going on exactly, but we're going to take a look at that. One of the real interesting things about this knife, this access bar, and I'm not sure if they're calling this an access lock or not, but that's the design of lock that we're working with here. But it comes apart in two pieces, which is phenomenal. This is something that Benchmade and Hogue and everyone that builds an access bar style lock should have done years ago. It's going to make disassembly so much easier and nicer to work with. I mean, over the years, I've gotten really good at dealing with access style knives, and I can disassemble and reassemble them very easily. But still, I know that's something a lot of people struggle with. And this design right here is going to be a game changer for that. Now, there is some really nice milling and chamfering. You can see up here on the liners, you can see where the chamfering stops, where the stop pin is, and then starts back up again. Very nice. You can also see that chamfering on the G10. But I didn't notice this until a few days ago. But you can see the chamfering on the G10. You can see the light shining off that edge, and it goes all the way back, and it falls right into where the backspacer. But look at this side. It's short. And so then I got to looking at it. You follow the backspacer around, and the other side is a little bit short of the backspacer, but look at this show side. It's a lot short of the backspacer. So I don't know if the mill just got off a little bit, if they had to rehome it and something, during the process, something got missed or got mismeasured or something happened because, they just flat out missed the mark right there. So that chamfering should go all the way to the backspacer like it does on this side here, and it does not. And then same thing on the other end of the backspacer. It just doesn't go all the way to the backspacer, which is kind of a bummer. One thing that they did do very nicely here is the design flows really well. You don't have a gap up here when the knife's closed. I don't have any knives here handy that is a good representation of that. But you can see where the stop pin hits on the knife, you can kind of see a line right across right there. The stop pin hits that area, but the geometry on this was well thought out. It looks good both open and closed. A lot of knives don't do that, so I give them props for just a well thought out design. The only things I'm overlooking the little bevel. I mean, that's probably just a one-off issue that happened here. Not a big deal. I can fix that. I'm not too worried about it. I know they're really busy and got a lot going on. But the thumb stud design leaves a little bit to be desired. The distance that the lock bar sticks out there, and then just the primary blade grind itself. Otherwise, This thing is really, really fantastic. It's super comfortable in hand in that choked up position for me with larger hands. It's really, really comfortable. And yeah, I'm overall really happy with it. But let's tear into this thing and see what we're working with. So I've got a T8 here. Looks like, yes, the pivot. Oh no, pivot must be a T10. Yeah, pivot's a T10. Okay, let's go move on. Looks like the access bar is going to be a T6. Yeah, and the body screws T6. Clip screws are T6. All right, so we got T10 on the pivot and T6 on everything else. So let's pull these screws out. Now, the 3 body screws look like they just thread in. I'm going to guess that there are threaded inserts on the opposite side, but I'm going to hope so. I hope those screws aren't just threaded into G10, but we're about to find out. Okay. We're going to have to, I'm going to have to get another because that's going to spin. I'll be right back. All right, I'm back in. Had to go get another T6 driver because this is going to be free spinning. But this is, I've never experienced a knife that actually has this. This is something that I thought should have been done years ago. And I'm really happy to see them do it here. All right. We've got some type of a D shape on the pivot. There was quite a bit of Loctite in there. All right, now see if we can get this apart. There it goes. The scales want to come apart pretty easy, but not the rest of it. Come on. Didn't bring any tools out here to do any sort of prying, but we do have a couple alignment pins I can see in there. Come on. See if I can, there we go. Put this pivot screw back in just a little bit and see if I can, wow. There we go. Okay. Just push the pivot through just a little bit. Actually, I'm just going to go ahead and take this off so we can just remove the scale, which is a little bit of a bummer, but I think we're going to have to. There's the clip. Get the scale screw out. Okay. Now, all right. So there's the scale. Very nice, thick G10 here. A lot of milling, internal milling going on. Got some nice threaded inserts there where the pocket clip lands. And here is the liner. Very nice. Same kind of, same type of Omega style springs that you get on any other Axis style lock. And this should, there we go. That's what I was wanting, was that to come off. Perfect. Now, the liner, well, that thing's tight. Come on. I got it off the pivot there, but man, it is tight on that that stop pin. Wow. That is amazing how freaking tight that is on there. There she goes. Ooh. It's tight on the actual axis bar. Interesting. All right. So, yep, for sure, riding on phosphor bronze washers. Quite simple. Nice design. You know, the everything is very clean. And you can see the fit there between the G10 and the show side liner. Very nice. And we do have threaded inserts in here as well as 2 alignment pins. I'm sure those are titanium as well. So yeah, really nice. You know, it's got a few minor, very minor issues. Nothing real crazy, but you can see the finishing on the liner here. The liner is brushed. You can see that chamfered edge up there. They left the meat around the stop pin, so really nice. I like to see that. You know, definitely there's a few minor things that I wish they would change, but there's no doubt about it that Les is a man that has really good, attention to detail, and looking at many different little details on this knife. It's nice to see, that's for sure. So these knives go for $280, and they did have a couple of these that were full titanium at Blade Show, and actually Stasa was able to get one. They did like a lottery deal for the full tie version, and they only had a couple of them. But I did handle one. I took some pictures of one. I may roll a few pictures in here into this video so you guys can see what that looked like. It was very nicely done. It had a really nice kind of starburst milling pattern on the titanium, and I think they said they only made like 4 of those, I think, for Blade Show. I don't think it's going to be something that is offered all the time. And for right now, you can only get this in this black G10, short of the handful of tie ones, the fully tie ones that they made. Otherwise, I would imagine, just especially seeing, their other knives, my guess is that there will be some other colorways and stuff that come at some point. But for right now, it's just this black one, which I'm totally fine with. I have heard a few people kind of complain a little bit that they didn't do the same changeable scales on this model. That doesn't bother me at all. I mean, it's cool on the Atom and the Neutron, but that's not a big concern for me. This design definitely does not lend itself as well as the Atom and Neutron does for that sort of thing, and I totally get that and understand that. So not a big deal. There was quite a bit of Loctite in there, and I'm just trying to. I'll show you here. You can see all the Loctite there on that screw. I'm just getting that picked off of there. Yeah, you can see a bunch of it on my finger there. Okay, now I'm hopeful that I can get this pivot pushed through there. It's very tight. Very, very tight. But let's see what we can make happen here. Okay, got it pushed in. I'm going to tighten that up a bit and then just barely back it off. Let's see where we're at. I probably got it, yeah. I've got the pivot just a little bit too tight. Yeah, no blade play. Nice. All right, let's tighten up this axis bar. One thing that's really nice here about the way that they've done this, so you can see a little color variation there on the actual lock bar because of the way they've done this. So they've just got, you know, a bar that's threaded from both sides, so you can get a screw in there, and then you just screw on the actual portions that you're gripping of the axis bar. But what that allows you to do is use a hardened steel bar. So I'm sure most of you are familiar with a Benchmade, like a bug out is notorious for this. If you let the spring tension of the lock bar push to where the lock bar is pushing on the tang of the blade, and you work it around, and it just feels all grindy and shitty feeling, that's because the access bar in the bug out is titanium, which is great for weight savings, but the titanium is softer than the blade steel. And so you're actually, you know, abrading that lock bar, and then eventually it gets kind of wore in, and it kind of finds a polished spot to kind of ride on. Now you can improve that by polishing the tang on the blade, but if there's any sort of grind lines in the tang of the blade, it'll just feel terrible on that access bar. So here you can use a hardened steel bar, and then, you know, you don't have that abrasion going on. You've got a hardened surface riding on a hardened surface, and should last a very, very long time. So that's a really cool design element. And then, you know, you can remove these pieces and do whatever you want with them. Anodize them, Cerakote them, whatever you want to do. Make them whatever color. So if you want to customize it, the possibilities are endless. So very cool little knife. Centering is perfect. Action is fantastic. You know, I really, really like the knife. I don't want people to get the wrong impression here. I did nitpick a few little things, but overall, you know, I really love the knife. This, like I said, was the first place I went at Blade Show. I went straight there and bought a TRM Shadow because I really wanted to get my hands on it, and it did not disappoint. There were a handful of things that I already kind of knew about the knife. Of course, I'd looked at it. I knew the thumb studs were going to be the same ones, you know, and I was hopeful that the blade was going to be ground a little better, but I wasn't holding my breath. And it is ground slightly better than the Atom and the Neutron, but still got a little ways to go there. So I really hope they start doing that and actually giving these knives the performance that they're capable of, because with this thin blade stock and everything else about this, I mean, a few minor tweaks here and this thing would be an absolute rock star. So anyway, guys, that's the TRM Shadow. I hope you enjoy it. You know, go and check out their Facebook and Instagram, and and they actually do have a new YouTube channel as well. And Les and Marianne, just phenomenal people. I can't say enough good things about them. They were both really, really fantastic to me. And so I love seeing all the new stuff that they have coming out, and I wish them all the best. So there you go. Hopefully you enjoyed that.